those who had babies in their teens, what's it like being in your 30s and having teenage kids? I'm 35 and have a 16 and 14-year-old. They are pretty good kids overall. I mean, they are rotten teenagers, but that's to be expected. It is pretty cool that I can still do stuff with them and not seem so out of place. We are however the youngest parents at our school, which is kind of odd for both us and the kids sometimes. So my mom had me when she was 18. I am now 18 and she is 36. She looks like she hasn't aged in 10 years and everyone thinks we're sisters. My dad on the other hand looks like he could either be my dad, or when we go out drinking, possibly my sugar daddy. We go to bars sometimes and I never get carded. I feel like I just read a first person description of the Gilmore Girls. I find it easy to empathize with the things she is going through because high school wasn't that long ago and I can remember very clearly what it was like. Also, having seen me struggle through my 20s as a young mom has definitely set her on a different path. She is a women's shelter volunteer, honor roll student, and has plans to go into law enforcement. And I would think that since the age gap is smaller, things haven't changed as drastically as they would have if you guys were older. It's pretty annoying when parents don't understand that things are different than when they were young. My mom is 35 and I'm 19. She's definitely more in the know than my friends' parents when it comes to pop culture, and sometimes I feel like she's more wild than I am because she never had a chance to get it out of her system when she was my age. Based on what she's told me, having a child saved her future and we're really close. Move ahead a generation. When I graduated high school my parents were in their early mid-30s. My dad was 16 when I was born. To me, a stupid 17-year-old, I thought my parents were old people. I was 34 when my first child was born. I can't wrap my mind around that crap. Both of my parents were in their 40s when I was born, and it wasn't until I was 18, and they were near 60, that I realized that they were getting old. Today is actually my daughter's 20th birthday. I'm 38. It's weird for people like us because we didn't have the same life most people did. Like, from the time I was 18 years old, I had the responsibility of someone else's life. Most of my friends were out partying and being selfish, in a good way, and living their own life, and mine was focused on providing a good life for my daughter. I knew I didn't want any more kids, and now that she's an adult, it's great. I got to experience all the stuff that goes along with being a parent, but I'm 38 and the hard work is done. I have lots of friends just now starting to have kids. Frick that noise. As others noted, it was always weird being in between. Among my peers, I was always ahead because I was already a parent going to softball games on Sunday morning instead of nursing a hangover. Okay, sometimes it was both, but all of the other parents were way older. Walking into my first parent-teacher conferences, I felt like I was going to get in trouble. Also leads to some weird situations. I used to go geocaching with her on the weekends and I can remember some lady grilling me because I was a 24-year-old guy walking out of the woods with a 6-year-old girl. And of course, nobody thinks, oh, you're her dad. I also had to bust up a house party that she threw in her mom's foreclosed house when she was about 17. I walked in and looked around for her and nobody had the sense to realize I was a parent. It wasn't until I started screaming everyone get the frick out now before the cops get here that they realized I wasn't there to chill. Though, I have to admit I was pretty proud. They had blacked out all the windows so no light was coming outside and had a full-on DJ with sound stack. 17-year-old me would have loved that party. It's definitely fun to go somewhere with them and watch as perverted society think you're a couple. I married into a pre-made family that made me a grandfather at the age of 39. My wife's oldest child had a child as a teenager. By the mid-40s I had 4 grandchildren. Personally, I did not like being a parent. I don't feel like I was good at it and didn't find any satisfaction or enjoyment in it. So, the teen years were difficult. My 2 oldest had significant behavioral issues, and my oldest has spent years in prison a couple of different times for drug trafficking, and many more years in juvenile detention for other crimes, theft, and malicious mischief type things. However, I love being a grandparent. It has been a complete paradigm shift for me. I don't really know why, but I enjoy spending time with my grandkids. and offer to babysit fairly often, and I feel like I am young enough to really enjoy the kids without being the old man. I make enough money now to spoil them, have plenty of vacation time to go to the zoo, or Disneyland, or pretty much whatever I want. My relationship with my 2 younger kids has significantly improved, but the oldest is still in prison, and completely unwilling to take responsibility for his actions and the danger that he presents to his children. So that relationship is still strained. Just keep trying, Dad. He'll come around, or he won't. I'm 37 with a 16 and 14-year-old, and a 9-year-old, too. It's awesome being my age with teenagers. I have tons of energy compared to some of my older counterparts. When I coach my kids' youth volleyball, basketball or soccer teams, I can still get on the field and play with them. I absolutely love schooling teenagers. Teachers are usually friendlier to us because they see us as similarly aged. I feel for my friends that are now dealing with their ticking biological clock and fretting about marriage and babies. The biggest negative has been trying to find and develop worthwhile friendships. Most parents tend to create friendships of convenience that center around the age of their kids. Thus, we often feel left out because we're still pretty young and active, and we don't fit the mold of the typical parents of a 16-year-old. While we didn't initially plan to be parents as teenagers, I don't regret it at all. Also, I look forward to 7 years from now when my kids will all be out of high school, and we'll be 44 years old empty nesters. It's pretty sweet actually. My son is 14 and he's almost 3 inches taller than me now, and I'm the cool mom to all his friends. He's a really good kid and involved in anything and everything he puts his mind to. I often feel like it's the payback for enduring the amount of crap society threw my way when I got pregnant with him in high school. Teachers wanting me to drop out. Principal not wanting me to walk with my class because it would look bad for the morale. Frick your morale. I graduated high school and college with honors. My son knows my history, knows what I went through, and knows what he needs to do to keep it from repeating. He is though above all my son. He knows that too. I'm the cool mom to all his friends. I'm 90% sure you're the hot mom to all his friends. Not 30 yet, but my husband is. I am 27. We had our first child when I was 16 and he was 18. She is 11 and has that preteen thing going on. We have been married 11 years and have a 10, 7, and 2 as well. It is definitely weird sometimes because most of our friends are running around with 1 or maybe 2 kids, toddlers, and our daughter is already wearing a training bra. Some cool things though are that we are still young and still cool to her some ways. We like video games and modern music. However, if I even remotely dance or hint at dancing, I get the OMG mom you're so old. That's so embarrassing bit. She occasionally tells us how old and decrepit we are. Her word not mine. But she also tells us sometimes how old her friends' parents are in ways like, so and so's parents are so old, like 45 and old like Nana. I'm 59. My daughter is 42, has a 21-year-old daughter who has a little boy who is 2, making me a great grandmother, FFS. Unbelievable. This early motherhood string is unique in my family, going back to the mid-18th century, so we're not living in a van down by the river or anything. I'm a professional person, as are both of my children. Having a child at 17 isn't optimal, but it worked out for me. I delayed going back to school till my children were in high school. That was my choice. Won't be right for everyone. The very best thing about having children young is youth itself. Not only was I young enough, my son was born when I was 21, to play and run and crawl around on the floor and wake up the next day to do it all over. I was 37 when I became a grandmother. I was young enough then to have more fun with my grandchildren than many people are, and I took full advantage of the opportunity. This new one, the 2-year-old, pushes my endurance envelope in ways the previous 2 generations didn't. Would I change any of it if I could go back to when I was 16 and not pregnant? Not if it meant missing having these specific people in my life. It's tough, though. It's not all Sesame Street and applesauce, but the good parts are breathtaking. I've lived to love 7 descendants and each one is unique and irreplaceable. I am the teen baby. I can honestly say my mom is the best woman I will ever meet. I'm 18 now. I had a wonderful childhood. She worked her butt for me and gave me everything I ever wanted. I know this didn't really answer the question, just had to give a shout out to my mom. Have her read this then give her a hug. I am the product of a teenage mom. I could have gone the same way since it seemed to be a pattern on my mom's side, but given my upbringing, I knew what I didn't want. My mom and stepdad and that whole situation pretty much showed me what not to do, as it did with at least one of my two sisters. The jury is still out on littlest sister. So far so good though. That said, I was still young when I had my oldest. I was almost 23. I had married my HS sweetheart and we just felt that kids were naturally next. I don't really mind that I have kids a bit older than my friends' kids. My oldest will be 13 this year and it is killing me a little each day that goes by closer to his birthday. I will turn 36 shortly after. I am happy for him to be more and more independent, but I am still saddened that he will be officially a teenager this year. I was 19. Wife was 18. Kids are now 25 and 21. Son just graduated Navy Nuclear Power School, regarded as one of the most difficult curriculums in the world. Daughter is married and on her own, no kids. So sitting at 44 and 42, we are empty nesters, less our two crazy Frenchies. Life is good, man. I've known someone like this. A friend tried for a mother-daughter threesome. Did not work. While I'm sure this is a scenario in plenty of P videos, I highly doubt the actors are actually mother and daughter. So it sounds like your friend is kind of a pervert. Was 19 when I had my son. You think you'd be generationally closer to them. There is a chasm between a 14-year-old and a 33-year-old today. I feel it's wider than between 14-year-old me and a 33-year-old then, mostly due to technology. The years have not been kind, but it's sort of a blessing that I can pass as early 40s. I don't get as much stigma as I used to when he was younger from teachers, scout leaders etc. I also have two small children. I love them dearly, but I will be the parent of an under 18-year-old for almost 30 years. I got pregnant at 19 and gave birth 2 months after I turned 20. I'm 29 with a 9-year-old now. I am the youngest mom at my kiddo's school, but only BC. It's a beach city and it's quite pricey to live here. I'm sure if I went inland I would meet younger parents. It's pretty awesome that when I'm 38 I'll be done raising kids, provided I don't have any more. It's nice to have a 9-year-old BC. I wake up most mornings with a cup of coffee that she brewed and put honey and milk in for me. We get our nails done together and she's like a little best friend. She is ridiculously well behaved and I just am so happy that I refused to abort her like at least 5 people suggested and 2 offered to pay for. Her dad owes just under $60k in support. He was 19 too and he handled it poorly. Anyway, it's awesome having a preteen at 29 BC. She's like my little buddy and she lights up my life. Not quite teens, but I took my sons, age 20 and 24 at the time, on my stag to Amsterdam when I was 41. Ex had my eldest when I was 17. Was a group of 20 of us, including my sons. Much fun and hilarity was had. I had my son when I was 15. He's 14 now and I'm 29. Everyone thinks we're siblings. I look younger than my age. Most PPL think I'm 21-25, so that doesn't help either. Most of his friends' parents are well into their 50s, so I don't exactly hang out with them or know them real well. I have had PPL question whether I'm his parent or not, mainly cause I'm younger. We'll probably get confused for GF and BF when he's in his 20s. I had my son at 15 too. Now that he's in school it's really funny that some of his teachers taught me too. When he was younger people would say your brother is so cute. Stepdad. But my wife had her first of 2 children at 19 and is a few years older than me. So now I'm a 30-year-old with a 14-year-old boy. For some context, I've been living with them for 5 years and have been around them most of the time for 6. It's wild. Sometimes I kick butt as a dad, and sometimes I feel like I blow it. That's probably par for the course for parenting. For what it's worth, I don't have a lot in common with my teenage son, but a little more with my stepdaughter who's a couple years younger. Probably helps that I've been around for half her life. 2. Not that my relationship with my son is bad, but we have to compromise to hang out. I've never been a video game person, so we'll do something like play Halo together because he likes it and I will struggle to play and he will struggle with me sucking at the mission so much. I am also not sure that, at 30, I'm ready to be challenged by a teenager in the way they typically challenge you. So I just try my best to be real and honest and to listen. Also, I look young as it is, so it is hard forming a relationship with other parents. Usually I get pegged as a much older sibling. Sometimes I feel a little like I lost the last half of my 20s. I'd like to have traveled more, had more time to pursue hobbies, and enjoy my money when I started earning it. It feels like half of my money goes to groceries, because teenage son. While I can provide a middle class life for my kids at this age, my biggest regret is that I'm probably not going to be equipped to help with college a whole lot if at all. I still will not have reached my peak earning potential. On this flip side, they will be adults earning for themselves by the time I'm 40. I am really excited to relax and do adult things with my kids. They're good kids and I hope they'll be good adults with solid values. I think it will be a lot of fun to do silly things and throw down a few beers. I have to be so serious with them sometimes. Meanwhile, I'm less than 10 years out of college and I did some funny stuff in my 20s. They think I'm old and don't even know. Both kids were accidents. I love my sons nonetheless, but turning 30 this year, and if my kiddos move out when they are 18-20 years old, being early to mid 40s will be glorious. I'm 32 and my wife is 36. We have a 16-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old and a newborn. I'll be honest, having a new baby at this age is exhausting. Yeah, it was scary the first time around, but we had the energy to cope back then. It does help though that they are all great kids. I have to work pretty hard, anywhere up to 90 hours a week, to keep up with the bills, but it allows my wife to stay home so the kids always have one parent around at all times. My father died when I was 7, so hopefully I'll have more years with my kids than I did with my own dad. If I could give any new parents one piece of advice, buy a dining table. It's probably the most important thing in our house. Being able to sit down and eat together as a family is what keeps us all sane. My wife and I are in our mid-30s and we have 3 teenagers, 17, 14 and 14, not twins, different marriages. Our oldest graduates this year and I'm excited for her to become an adult and start college. In 4 more years, my kids will all be in college and we will be empty nesters. I'll 40, and for some reason that makes me feel awesome because we will have a long time to enjoy our middle years without kids. Obviously, we'll always be there for our kids as they go through adulthood, but now we can go travel and not have to worry about what we are going to do with the kids. I'm 35 and my son is 16. I like him. It's pretty good to know that when he's 18 and off to college that I'll only be 38 and have plenty of time to go have fun. I didn't miss out on parties and drunken shenanigans. That's not my style. I've already got an established career, so I'll get to go do some stuff that there's no way I would have been able to afford or enjoy as a 20-something. On the other hand, I'm not sure what I'm going to do without him. It's just been me and him for so long. He's kind of my partner in crime. I get a little panicky if I think about it for too long. I know he needs to go out there and live his life. I've raised him to be a pretty good dude and I trust that he will be okay. I'm just not sure what the heck I'm supposed to do with myself when he's out there on his own and not home hanging out with me. No more weird teenage boys hanging at my house. Nobody to clean up after. Nobody to nag about the laundry. Nobody to DJ for me while we go drive aimlessly on back roads all night. Nobody to laugh at my stupid jokes. Nobody to fuss over. On another note, I'm 16 and my mom is 31. Her family completely wrote her off and didn't talk to her for years. My dad is 32, and his family was super psyched about having a baby. My family lived with my grandparents until about 5 years ago when my dad finally got his degree. I actually like having these young parents because they have tons of energy to do things with me I've never seen any of my friends' parents doing. My parents had me as seniors in high school, aged 17 and 18. I'm in my 20s now and finishing college, but growing up was rough. Both parents struggled to make money, they didn't stay together, and as a kid I always felt behind on things. My friends had nice clothes, fun houses, cool toys, and a supportive family. I was making my own dinner at age 7 while my mom was working, and I would see my dad about twice a month. I grew up feeling like a guest in my own home because I was always bouncing from house to house so often. Now they are both remarried with kids, have successful jobs and happy lives. We have a good relationship, but I can't help but feel like I'm just a leftover artifact from their troubled past. Like they're just waiting for the day for me to graduate college and become totally financially independent so they can wash their hands of me. I'm not a parent, but my mom had me when she was 15, and she loved it. She said obviously there were a lot of struggles, but overall it's not something she regrets. It's also been nice to be a kid of a younger parent. It's easier to be close to them and they can relate more to me. It also seems like I just have a lot more fun with my mom because of how young she is. I never felt like she was a bad mother either. She pushed me to do well in school and is paying for my university right now. She had 4 kids by 30 and loves it. I got pregnant with my oldest at 17 and gave birth to her at 18. I had my second child at 23 and my youngest at 25. I'm 40 now, so the kids are 22, 17, and 15. I loved being a young mother. I had energy and enthusiasm. I wasn't nearly as cynical and I had more patience. When I was in my 30s, had a teenager, a preteen, and one just a bit younger. My friends and neighbors were just starting their families and were dealing with sleepless nights, spit up, and child-proofing the whole block. I was happy to be past all of that mess. I'm 32 with 14-year-old twins. It's weird. People who meet me at work or other places away from my kids assume that when I talk about my kids, I mean young kids, like under 10. The first time a newish co-worker heard my son on the phone, she genuinely thought it was a man calling me and that I was just messing with her, saying that it was my teenage son. I'm also told I look about 25-27 rather than 32, so that adds to it. At school sports functions, people sometimes think I'm the aunt or the older sister rather than the mom. Sometimes meeting another parent, I can definitely see that they're trying to figure out how old I am. Did I have them as a teenager or do I just look really good for my age? And how old I must have been when they were born. It's a little awkward making small talk with people who are 10-20 years older than me all the time, but sometimes it just works. One of my best parent friends is a woman in her late 60s, raising her grandson. My kids, especially my 11-year-old daughter, are a little self-conscious about my age. My twins are boys and I know they'd sooner die than tell me this, but I think there's been a few the twins' mom is hot things. I also took all my kids into a coffee place. I normally stop into this place alone, on my way to work, and the barista made a big fuss over not thinking I was old enough for these to be my kids, and my 11-year-old just about died of embarrassment. I had my oldest when I was almost out of my teens 2 months from turning 20. She will be 16 next month. It has been kind of a roller coaster. The first couple of years were hard because I struggled with severe postpartum depression that went undiagnosed until I got into therapy when she was about 18 months old. I missed out on a lot of things while I was sick, including building the parent-child bond that is critical to her baby's well-being. Fortunately, my mother was there to hold it together until I got better. But then she was the one who bonded with my daughter in a parental way, and reintroducing myself as her mother was an awful heck for all of us. My relationship with my daughter is pretty fantastic now, though. I remember very clearly what the teenage experience is like, and that informs a lot of my interactions with her. I remember just wanting to be treated like a person at her age, instead of everyone demanding that I grow up while not giving me the agency to make my own decisions. I talk to her as a person, not a child. Some things I keep to myself because I need to know, but I don't shelter her from the realities of life and how much being an adult can well and truly suck. My parents didn't do this, and I grew up thinking adulthood was a magical fairyland of freedom and money. Being shoved out of the nest at 18 was a very rude awakening. We share a lot of interests such as music. I introduced her to the Dresden Dolls when she was 5 or so, and she got me into Panic and Fall Out Boy a couple years ago, and expensive makeup. She and her friends think I'm cool or whatever, but I don't care. I'm not trying to be anybody's friend. I don't want that. I can still be a butthole mom. I just want to share what I've learned since I was her age without a lot of cryptic "you'll understand when you're older" crap. There is some of that, but I've discovered it's far less than my parents led me to believe. My mom had me when she was 18. I don't think she ever actually grew up. Every time I visit her, I was passed around as a kid between family members, but never lived with my mom. She seems just like a child. Now I'm 18. She is pretty cool, but I honestly don't think she's a good mom. I feel horrible for saying that. I love her to death, but still. It's pretty surreal. I had my son when I was 16 and he's now 18, turned last month. He's a good kid in his way to college for engineering, is in the robotics club, speaks 3 languages, and plays the violin and bass. His mother and I got married and had another little girl who is 10. She's likes art and is generally more of the creative type. All in all, while there are some things I, and my wife, miss that I can't get back, I wouldn't change it for the world. They're here and they're pretty terrific. We got extremely lucky though, and I wouldn't recommend being a teenage parent as a life choice. The struggle was very real and a lot of near breakups between my wife and I. If you get through that though, you can have something truly great on the other side. Normal, I guess. I was able to consider myself independent on my FAFSA and get a $0 EFC, so I got hella financial aid for college, which was nice. I'll be 36 when my daughter turns 18. Most people my age, 30, are just barely having toddlers. I have a 4-year-old and am already done making tiny humans, so I'll be young when my kids become adults. I can't really compare it to anything because being a parent with responsibilities has always been my adult life. I'm excited to be in a spot where I don't need to care for the physical needs of minors. I'm 35, my daughter just turned 20 this week. I have an 11-month-old grandson. I'm 35. My wife and I met in high school at 14 and then wouldn't you know, she got pregnant. Raising a child as a teenager is easy. It's raising an adult when you're a teen parent is difficult. My wife and I are together 21 years later and we have a great family. I didn't graduate high school, but I'm very successful. We're not perfect, but we did a good job with our daughter. She is happy. My son-in-law is great, and I'm proud of her. We also have 2 sons, 4 and 12. It was like having 3 only children to some extent, and I love the time we got with each of them individually. I'm not sure what you're looking for exactly. It all feels very normal to me. Like this video and this good boy will play you a nice song. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.